Hello everyone, Jay Whitner here with Space Headlines. Each week we cover the news in the space arena, and today we're going to be talking about the second week of May 2018. Our first item pertains to the NASA budget. The House sent forward a bill that would call for an increase in the NASA budget of 4% to $21.5 billion for 2019. It does represent an $800 million increase over the prior year, and it includes $3.5 billion for the SLS Orion situation. And 4% is better than many federal agencies are faring, but after inflation, it's substantially under 4%, of course. NASA, along with many other industries, has really embraced the 3D printing technology. And NASA recently made a rocket engine part using 3D printing, and it passed its tests with flying colors. It was a combustion chamber. The test went really well. They tested this engine at 100% of the rated thrust for about 30 seconds, and everything went very, very well. So NASA moving forward with the 3D printing. Probably our biggest news item of the week is the very first flight of the Falcon 9 Block 5. If you haven't been paying attention to this matter, the Block 5 is planned by SpaceX to be the final iteration of the Falcon 9. And the main goal of the Block 5 is rapid reusability. So this was the first flight of this heavily modified Falcon 9. It went very, very well. The payload reached orbit, the launch took place, and the first stage landed safely on the drone ship. It was the 25th landing of a first stage by SpaceX, which is another milestone. The launch took place at Kennedy Space Center, and this model of the rocket is the model that will be used for commercial crew flights with the second generation Dragon space capsule. There's a long list of enhancements that the Block 5 represents, but some of the highlights are 8% more thrust than the prior version, a thermal protection system that helps with the reentry, retractable landing legs, and many, many other enhancements. So our heartfelt congratulations to the team at SpaceX for a job well done. NASA and JPL are working on an upcoming Mars mission. It's called the Mars 2020 mission. And what they're planning to have with the rover is a flying drone. We're used to drones here on Earth these days, but this will be the first example of a flying drone used for solar system exploration. So this drone has been under development for several years. As you may be aware, the Mars atmosphere is about 1% of the density of the Earth atmosphere, so it's much harder to fly in terms of that. So the blades on this drone will spin about 10 times faster than the drones that you might see flying around near you. And this mission is going to arrive at Mars in 2021. Elon Musk has made some statements about the Block 5 fleet and how they're going to use these rockets in the wake of the successful flight of the Block 5. Basically, they're saying they think there's going to be about 300 flights of the Block 5 Falcon 9 before we fully shift over to the BFR, the Big Falcon rocket. So the next goal that they have in terms of the Falcon 9 Block 5 is they'd like to demonstrate a 24-hour turnaround to fly the rocket twice in a 24-hour period. They are planning to do that in 2019, next year. And Mr. Musk does see a gradual reduction in launch prices. And in terms of sort of trying to calculate this out a little bit, what it might mean, the first stage of the Falcon 9 represents about 60% of the marginal cost of a flight. So with long-term reusability, a long-term goal of reusing each rocket up to 100 times, this could represent a huge reduction in the cost and the sales price of the Falcon 9 eventually. Moving to one of SpaceX's competitors, ULA, the United Launch Alliance, made an announcement about their upcoming Vulcan rocket, and it pertains to their upper stage. The upper stage of their rocket is going to use an Aerojet Rocketdyne engine. There had been some question about whether they might use a Blue Origin engine in the upper stage, but they've chosen the Aerojet Rocketdyne engine. This is the RL-10, which has a long space heritage. The first stage engine of the Vulcan has not yet been determined. So again, the competitors, I believe, are the same. It is Aerojet Rocketdyne and Blue Origin. So the question is, will it be the BE-4 engine of Blue Origin or not? So time will tell how this shakes out, and we'll see how the Vulcan performs when the time comes. In an important breakthrough, there's a new device up on the space station that's being put through its preliminary tests right now. It's a variable G platform, so samples of very small life forms, for example, flies or things like that, can be experimented on in terms of how they react to 1/6 gravity, like the moon, or 3/8 gravity like Mars. We're trying to get data on this because right now there really is very little data on anything except for 1G and microgravity of effectively 0G. So this will allow scientists to see how things fare with these in-between gravity levels. Up to 2 gravities is the maximum. The machine is built by TechShot, and each little module that the specimen can be put inside is about 800 cubic centimeters. So if you envision a cube that's 3 or 4 inches on each dimension, that's sort of the size of the space that's available. It's much too small to do the next level of testing. You know, it's too small to test on a rat or a mouse. So a larger device is needed as soon as possible. They're talking about the future of the Space Launch System, and the news item that's been talked about recently in this week was, if the Space Launch System is going to fly at least 9 times, additional investment is going to be needed for advanced boosters. So why is that? Well, a lot of the hardware was based on Space Shuttle existing hardware, and this is old hardware that is no longer in production in the most part. So the future SLS flights will need eventually advanced evolved boosters. So this would increase the payload capacity, but will represent a significant increase in the investment needed to keep the Space Launch System going. We had a close pass by a large asteroid during this period. On May 15th, a big asteroid, this was about the size of a 747 aircraft, flew past the Earth at very high speed, and the distance away, it was about half as far away from Earth as the Moon is. And it was much, much larger than the asteroid that injured 1,500 Russians back in 2013. So we have these visitors from time to time, and it'd be nice if we had some planetary defense that was in better shape in case we should need it. The White House decided that they were not going to continue funding for the carbon monitoring program that NASA's been running. So as soon as existing funding runs out, the program will be terminated unless Congress overturns the situation. So this data has been critical in monitoring what's going on with carbon dioxide levels in the Earth's atmosphere. Data so far indicates that carbon dioxide levels are about 30% higher than they were before the industrial age began. So this is good information to know so that we can determine what needs to be done about these issues. With the lack of data, it will be very hard to decide what needs to be done. That's it for Space Headlines for the second week of May 2018. Hope you enjoyed our show, and we'll see you in a week with news of week 3 of May 2018. Take care.